Yeah, this was an interesting case study. This comes out of a home in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this particular homeowner has been there for about 30 years. They're one of the original, I think they're the original owner of the house. And they're kind of getting ready to move on and move south for retirement. And they had this issue that kind of came uncovered as they started to do more landscaping around the house to kind of make it look nice. They have this very long horizontal crack that goes around the foundation, but primarily one large section that is really bad in one area, about 12, 15 feet overall. Now, if you kind of look into the Google sphere of different foundation types of cracks, when you see horizontal cracking, all the red alarms go off. It's a major structural issue. The house is collapsing. Everything to give you scare tactics and scaring issues for horizontal cracking. And in some cases, that is the case where you see a horizontal crack. Usually, that's an indicator that the foundation footing has dropped, and it's actually causing it's pulling down the house with it, or it's pulling down the foundation away from the house, which would involve major structural reconstruction of this area. And this particular homeowner had a lot of people out. They had a lot of people investigating, what it could be. And, a lot of people were telling them, you have to lift your house up. If you're going to have this major project, you have to replace your foundation. They were just saying they were trying to go into retirement and losing their nest egg and trying to get this house sold. So they called us up to try to figure out what's going on here. And what actually is going on is not any of the major structural issues. Well, it is a slight structural issue, but it's something that could be remedied for far less than actually lifting or piering a house. In this particular home, it was built with rebar, so steel reinforcement internally to the concrete. Most residential construction has no rebar in it. They'll have tie rods, which is part of the way to keep the forms up, which a lot of people call rebar, but actual having steel rebar reinforcement as a lattice structure internally to the concrete is actually pretty rare in most residential concrete. Sometimes you'll see it in the footing just to stabilize a footing even more, but in terms of the walls, you don't typically see it. Commercial construction, you see it almost every single build because they have to have a stronger, more resistant concrete. But this particular house was built with rebar and great, and it should make a stronger foundation. The problem is in the period in which it was built, it was not built to today's standards. So you may see different concrete projects around in your city or your town, and you'll see a lot of green colored steel because this steel has now been coated with an anti-oxidation coating there so it won't rust. But back when this house was built, that wasn't the standard practice, which again, part of the normal building codes for back then. So this concrete has rebar in there that's been untreated. And the problem with untreated rebar is that over time, the acidity of the actual concrete will cause it to rust. And by itself, not a big deal because the concrete's very strong. But the concrete's very strong in being pushed on either from the top or from the sides. It doesn't like to be pulled apart. And when rebar rusts, it creates a lot of force outside of the concrete. So it creates it on a tension, what we call tensile force of the concrete. And concrete is not very strong in that tensile direction, so being pulled apart. So as the rebar rusts, it expands, and it actually blew out a huge chunk of concrete along the side of the house there. So what can you do here? Well, luckily there's still a substantial amount of concrete in the foundation to be able to be stable. So there's almost like a pizza slice that's been cut out here and a wedge that's been cut out. But the actual rebar was still in pretty good shape. There was still a lot of meat on the bones, if you will. And the concrete had plenty of strength left in it. It was really just this outside section of the concrete. So you may see when you're driving on the highway, you'll see construction crews working on concrete overpasses. They kind of put boards on everything. They have it all tented off. And that's essentially what they're going to be doing to this house here, is that they're going to be, chipping away all of the crumbly concrete in and around the rebar, getting the rebar treated, knocking down the rust to stable steel, treating and coating the rebar, and then putting a masonry, concrete, or patch repair back on the exterior to protect everything and give stabilization to it. So no need to lift the house in this particular case. It's more of a rebar treatment where we're able to basically save the homeowner tens of thousands of dollars in repairs. Structurally, everything is sound. There was no concerns there. And really, it was just about, giving them the peace of mind is that they're doing the right thing. They were a little misinformed from the beginning, but in reality, it's a pretty straightforward repair on a pretty small section of the foundation.